Welcome to the Florence Foodies podcast, a place for the community to gather and share the stories, voices, and experiences that make Florence feel like home. To support this podcast and the Florence Foodies platform as a whole, click the Support This Podcast link found in the description.
Lewis Hill was the first guest on the Florence Foodies podcast. Now, I should have, for anybody that's OCD wouldn't like this, I should have waited till episode 30. I think this is episode 29, but we brought you back, and just good to have you back. But a more specific reason, too, for it to be timely is it is time for the football season to start. We're a week away, well, by the time this airs, probably about a week away, or less, actually, because I'm behind. And Clemson graduate, Mr. Lewis Hill, is joining us.
Yes.
How are you feeling about the season coming up?
Feeling pretty good, but first off, thanks for having me back. Honored to be here again, and love talking football as much or more as I love talking food.
Well, this is the right place to do it. And so for those that don't care, at least the first half of today's episode is going to be specifically, predominantly Clemson and Carolina football talk. So you might want to fast forward to the halfway mark if you want to get to the food. So, but we will talk about Florence's food scene in depth, I do believe. But one thing I want to do is I want to do a prediction. I've got my prediction for both teams' records this year. I would like to at least end this section with that. But before we get to that, I just want to talk a little bit. So I'd like to hear your predictions as well for both teams. But I want to kind of gauge where you're at with y'all's program and what are your opinions on our program coming into this year. This is probably the first time in a long time that we've had a premier preseason Heisman candidate watch list person on our team, and our quarterback Lenore Sellers. So what are your thoughts? What are you thinking about Clemson's program? We'll start there.
Okay, so I think it's an interesting season because we went from a few years where national media and pundits were essentially slamming Dabo tremendously, just slamming him constantly, and thinking that the glory days for him and Clemson football were over. And I'm not necessarily trying to say that we're back or anything like that, because we did take a dip after that period from 2015 to 2020 where we were pretty much on top of the world. And now all of a sudden, just based on essentially the end of last season, we now have a top 5 ranking. We're preseason number 4 in the AP poll, and I think maybe 6 in coaches poll. But we're in conversation for potential national championship appearance, and some are predicting a win. You've got Cade Klubnik, also a Heisman Trophy candidate from many corners. So I think it's interesting to see how that narrative has changed all of a sudden, and why it changed. Because if you look at the end of the season, we have the loss to you guys, in a very heartbreaking fashion, and then we go in and squeak out the win over SMU to just barely get in the playoffs. And then we go to and lose to Texas, and our defense basically gets embarrassed. But somehow that performance from Cade and our offense seems to show that he had taken the next step and played pretty well, even if it was late in the game against a great Texas defense. So it seems to kind of pushed some momentum our way despite those 2 late season losses. And I think that, another key piece of this, and it's kind of ironic as well, because one of the is the consistency of our team and our program, knowing what we have coming back. So we've got 16 returning starters, which puts us tied for second amongst Power 4 teams. So Dabo's approach to building a program is from high school recruiting, player development, and that's what he's continued to do. Now, we hit the portal with a few key acquisitions. So we got Will Help from Purdue to shore up, because we essentially don't have a second defensive end that we felt was starter quality. And then we got Jeremiah Alexander, who was a guy that we had recruited out of Alabama, teammates with Peter Woods, our defensive tackle, who ended up going to Alabama, but then after last year decided to transfer in. So we hit the portal with a few key players. But it's interesting that I think one of the reasons why we are so highly ranked coming into the season is because pundits and writers out there, they think they know what to expect from us. You look at across the landscape of college football, you have a lot of teams that are replacing, especially their quarterback. If you just look at the top 10, there's some teams, putting in a new starting quarterback. So there's just a lot of unknowns, and I think we're going to see that more and more in college football moving forward because of the portal and NIL and the way things are. So
Well, y'all got a tremendous test right out of the gate. So I think you're spot on with that, like, general view. Like, why is all of a sudden the narrative seemed to shift on Clemson? And I mean, I got my own speculations as to why that would be. And I mean, I'll just tell you what they are. I think that when you look at their path to the playoff compared to some other teams, relative to where the team is at, where they're ranked, where, entities like Pro Football Focus or something like that would expect you guys to be based on your roster, based on your coaching staff, then it makes sense to think that you should see the Clemson Tigers in the playoffs. And with that roster, you should be able to compete with most anybody at the top of the game. So I mean, that it makes sense. I think that too. There was a lot of question marks on your quarterback, so Klubnik, but he has come on, especially
yeah.
at the end of last year.
And he's a great example of that development approach that Dabo has taken,
Mhm.
because it looked like I was one of these people that I felt like I really wasn't sure if he was going to make the grade and he was going to get us where we needed to go. And, it felt like after having, as far as 5-star quarterback recruits go with Deshaun Watson and then Trevor Lawrence, two where you strike gold, and then you have DJ Uiagalelei and then Cade Klubnik. It looked like we were going to have two kind of strike out twice in a row, but Cade has shown that he's put in the work, and of course, a lot of it is also Dabo sticking to him. He's basically gone all in on Cade being the guy, and we're starting to hopefully see the fruits from that.
Yeah, he's definitely played better. As a Carolina fan, I would have loved to have been able to sit here and say that he was a bust again. Speaking about DJ, but he hasn't. I mean, he's improved. So I think that makes it very interesting to see what y'all are going to do this year.
Yep.
And you do have a big test right out the gate, which is
Yes.
nice.
Yep.
We could talk more about that here in a minute, but when we get into kind of predicting the
Okay.
records. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that game. What time is that game?
7:30 on next
Seven
Saturday.
7:30.
Yes, I will be there.
Are you going to be
I'm looking
there?
forward to it. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Tigers. Where's the game at?
It's in Clemson. Yeah.
It is
Yeah. It's not a neutral site. So we've got them at home this
the
year,
battle
and
for
then we'll
Death
go.
Valley.
That's right. So this is our first home and home ever with LSU. So we've played them 4 times historically, all 4 in bowl games. So
What do you think about our program coming into this season? Where do you see us at
sure.
from a Clemson alum perspective?
Yeah. So I have to give, I got to give Shane and company credit, because as I think you may recall last year having conversations going into the season, I felt like that you guys had a 6-6 ceiling, and I think I predicted a 5-7 record looking at your schedule. So he's proved people wrong on a couple different occasions so far with y'all's teams in his short tenure. So I feel like it's legitimate for you guys to have the excitement, for Carolina fans to be excited about where you're at this year and where you're potentially going. I think that, of course, Lenora Sellers has got to be the number one reason for that. Now, have been some recruiting wins just last night. For example, you guys got a 5-star inside interior offensive
We
lineman
did.
commitment. So there's definitely good things. You guys have used the portal really well. You've also got Dylan Stewart on the other side, who's a stud. So you have some players and that would give you some excitement. So I think that, and it's just exciting that both teams are kind of back with some real preseason expectations at the same time. Now, both teams have had ups and downs to some degree, and we've had some um, good games in the series, but having that same level of excitement from both sides is good for the rivalry.
Yeah. I think that still, with all that being said, which obviously I agree 100% to all those points, but we still have a lot more volatility coming into this season.
Yeah,
And as a whole, at the team, even at the quarterback position, I mean, Lenore Sellers could be honestly boom or bust. I mean, just being honest, I think that the volatility level at that position for us is more so than with your team. I think that let me say it this way. I think most people would agree with this. Lenore Sellers' ceiling is higher than Klubnik's is, but at the same time, I think we could expect, and some of this is probably due to experience, of course, but his floor is probably also lower than what Klubnik's could be this season, and he may have less around him, particularly in terms of protection. I
yeah,
think we should be okay at wide receiver. I mean, all the reports have been, and you know how this goes with reports out of camp and all that kind of thing, but Nick Harbor really dedicated himself to football, and that was the big question. Track star, track athlete, but he's committed to that, and all the reports have been that he's really improved. He was improving last season. I mean, I think we saw that on the field. So with his metrics, like if he really has started to fill into the position of a wide receiver, a number one wide receiver, I mean, that could be a nightmare for opposing defenses across the country.
yep. And I agree with that assessment completely because I think that's maybe not the biggest key because you guys do have so many unknowns on your team. Because you guys are returning only I think 8 starters, and that's about tied for, I think I looked up, 35th in the country amongst Power Four teams. So about middle of the pack. So not really bad, but nothing special. And so I think the question mark is Lenore's going to take the next step as a passer because he
Mhm.
as an athlete, he's an absolute monster. He's tough to bring down. He can just make these crazy Superman plays, and it's a total X factor. But I think last season your defense was so good that it was able to make up for some of the lack of consistency
Yeah.
that the offense showed and some of the lack of skill of weapons at skill positions.
That's definitely the question. Can he deliver the ball on time and accurately from the pocket?
Hmm.
And as far as physical ability, I don't think it's any question. We've seen him do it.
Yeah,
Even going back to high school, we know that he can literally throw the ball,
yeah,
but it's different whenever you've got to get in rhythm, you play in rhythm and in timing and everything like that, and see the field and
hmm,
have multiple reads. But if it turns out to be in the development that he can,
yeah,
then that's a big problem
yeah.
for
Yes,
every opposing defense that we
yes,
face.
that's scary for me for sure.
Yeah. So that's another national topic that I've read in regards to Clemson with all the returning starters. But I think one thing, or at least, and if my numbers are correct, and I think they are on this, we have 26, maybe 25, depending on our running back, which is disappointing that we don't know what's going on with that a week ahead of the season. 26, or not returning, I'm sorry, 26 senior slash graduate players. And I believe Clemson's number was in the high teens, 18, 19, something like that.
Okay.
Not a huge advantage, but a handful more players
Hmm.
that have more experience on our team, actually. So some of that
Okay.
narrative, I think, is a little bit skewed. Obviously, a lot of that having to do with the transfer portal, so they're not returning players. But
Mm.
um, just one thing that I think about on that note, another reason for us to have optimism. We lost some
Yeah.
guys to the NFL draft, so
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you mentioned at running back, Faison. I mean, I'm heard some returns from y'all's camp that basically, whether the NCAA lets him play or not could have an impact, like on, maybe one or two win differential for you guys
I could
because
see
he
that. I mean,
he's
yeah,
that
he's
could
he's
be he
yeah.
could be that impactful of a player.
Absolutely. Well, we saw that last year with Rocket Sanders. So you think about like the Missouri game in
Hmm.
particular comes to mind, but there was a few different times where I mean his impact on the field was tremendous.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that he didn't get drafted. I guess he's with I think Seattle.
Okay.
Somebody picked him up. We'll see if he makes a team or not in the NFL. But I thought he played tremendous last year. I mean, he was a
Yeah.
huge, probably just as important to the team as our quarterback was in some of those cases. So
Yep.
What about recruiting? So I think another thing for us, that we're excited about, just trying to gain some ground with y'all. A couple things that I noticed. So in the 2026 cycle, you mentioned that we picked up 5-star lineman
Yep.
last night. We also picked up Landon Duckworth a couple weeks ago. That was a big one we were hoping for. And one thing, and I've mentioned it before, but that Shane Beamer harped on was recruiting in the state. So right now for the 2026 cycle, we've got we're ranked a little bit higher than y'all on. Well, this was 24/7 that I was looking at. But one thing that stood out to me was, and again, if I'm correct, you can fact check this, but we had 6 in-state commitments currently to Clemson's 1.
Yeah. So yeah, I can speak on that a little bit as far from the Clemson perspective. So it's really more of a perception thing, the idea of owning the state, because over the last 10, 15 years under Dabo, as our program's status has kind of gone up and up, the reality is that South Carolina recruiting has mattered less and less to us as a program. For us, Georgia is essentially in-state recruiting.
Yeah.
For us to be able to be an elite program, we have to win the state of Georgia to some degree. Now, you're never gonna beat Georgia in their own state on a consistent basis, but you have to get enough guys because the state of Georgia has become possibly the best state for recruiting in the country. And it's definitely the most important for us geographically. Um, and so I don't want to say that the state of South Carolina is not important at all. And there definitely is a perception there. And you guys have gotten some good players, but also some of the recruiting losses that we have taken to you guys in the last couple of years from guys that were in state haven't ended up. Those guys haven't necessarily panned out, and it hasn't really hurt us that much. Yeah, and I mean, and recruiting's it's a tough spot for Clemson right now because last year, we ended up with a poor class because we lost a lot of guys because of the way that we play the NIL game is not the same as a lot of our competitors. But with the House settlement that happened and went into effect, there's now this, I think, $20.5 million revenue share from the TV money where all schools are required to share some amount of or that amount of money, and they have the ability to spread it out at some percentage that they deem fit amongst all the different sports. So one good thing for us is that Clemson's planning to put possibly the highest percentage of anybody in the country towards football. So that's going to be our main approach to being more competitive with NIL. But the question then becomes, are we just raising the floor with that amount of money? So are you going to have other schools that are very, very wealthy, Texas, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and some that are just, they'll do anything to win, Bama, Auburn, Florida, LSU, Michigan, are those schools just going to say donors, we still need more. This $20 million is great, but we still need you to up the ante to be able to get whoever we want. So that remains to be seen. So that it's a very complicated time in recruiting for sure.
Yeah. And it's probably not done evolving. So
Yeah, oh, definitely not. And I hope not, because where we're at right now
it's no good.
is no good. It's not sustainable. We need to I it's I didn't want the sport to go towards the NFL model, but unfortunately, with all the money that's on the table with television and everything, I think that ship has sailed. We just need to get to a point where there's consistency, there's common sense rules that make sense to govern all the teams. And if that turns into just a some combination of the Power Four conferences all in a super conference or a league of some sort, essentially a slim down Division One, then so be it. Because I think it would benefit everybody to get back to divisional rivalries, playing teams or not, excuse me, not divisional rivalries, geographical rivalries, playing teams in your
Yeah.
region, instead of all the way or halfway across the country.
Yeah.
Sorry
Well,
for the diversion there, but
no, it's all good because it's true. It remains to be seen. So it's not done evolving. We'll see what kind of changes are coming down the pipeline. But for
yep,
now, we've got what we got.
yep,
And so we're coming into this season. I do think we have a lot of reason to be excited. There is, like I mentioned for us, I think a lot more volatility than you guys are looking at. But there's still some question marks on your side too. And really, like we mentioned right out the gate, which we have a big game too. I mean, the Virginia Tech game is kind of I think similar because that could easily be a trap game for us. There's going to be a lot of energy going into that on both sides. So we'll see what happens. But why don't we do this? I want to go through the schedule. I've got my prediction of both teams'
okay,
records this year.
all right,
We'll start with you, and we can go through Clemson's schedule.
okay,
Give us just an overall, end of season record, regular season record prediction, and then I'll give you mine, and then we'll do Carolina after that.
okay. So I think what I'll do, I'll go through the schedule and then give the prediction at the
Okay.
end there. So, as you mentioned, starting out against LSU, um, it's that's always I'm always conflicted when you start a season again with a big game like that, and we've had a good number of those in the Dabo era. It's always so much more exciting, but it could possibly, depending on the makeup of your team, could be better to have a cupcake week one. But I think maybe with what we have returning, starting off with a component that's going to get our attention might be for the best. But LSU's got some unknowns, even though they've got Nussmeier at quarterback, another Heisman candidate. They've relied heavily on the portal, and their defense was pretty poor last year, and they lost 4 offensive linemen to the draft. So that could be our defensive line against their offensive line could definitely be the difference in that game. So I honestly still a little torn about that one overall. For some reason, my head is telling me that we should win that game with it being at home with what we have returning, but I just have this nagging feeling in my stomach that we may not. So then we get Troy. That's a win, of course. And then right off the bat, week 3, we have one of our biggest potential uh, uh, games of the season going to Atlanta to play at Georgia Tech. The way they finished the season last year, beating Miami, they should have beaten Georgia in Athens, but couldn't quite pull it off in all those overtimes. They look like that Brent Key has got them on the up and up. So that's probably our toughest ACC game, I would say, if Georgia Tech is the team that we think they're going to be. Then we get Syracuse at home. I think with what they've lost, losing Kyle McCord, who was essentially the catalyst for their good season last year, I don't expect them to bounce back. They'll probably drop back down and be close to a 500 team. Then we get to go to Chapel Hill for a Dabo versus
Yeah, how
Belichick
about that?
battle. So love to see that on the schedule this year. I don't really have much expectation for what North Carolina is going to do this year, just simply based on the talent they have.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's not there. So if Belichick does have a lot of success this year, then that's gonna say a lot about his abilities as a coach. Then we get on the road to Boston College. They're in a tough spot as a program. They really haven't been able to gain a lot of traction. So, I mean, that could be a true trap game because I'm really not seeing that. I mean, going up there, I've been to Chestnut Hill. I've been in that stadium. It's sleepy. It's like it's like a snooze fest in that stadium, I have to say, and that can it can catch you off guard. So then we return home for what should also be one of the biggest games of the season, potentially. SMU comes to town for a rematch from the ACC championship game last year, but they've lost a lot. So I know they're preseason 16. That's one of those on there. I could see them falling off a little bit this year, unless it's just a situation that they're because of the ACC mediocrity, they're able to still have a good team. Then we get Duke. They paid a lot of money for that Tulane transfer quarterback um, over the offseason. So that could be another potential decent game. I don't know what else they have, but we definitely need some payback there after getting embarrassed at the beginning of the season in 2023 in Durham. And then Florida State comes to town. I don't They're another big question mark. After their horrendous season last year, I don't really think Norvell's going to do enough probably to keep his job. But we're going to know a lot more about them week 1 after Alabama goes to Doak Campbell. But as of right now, I'm not thinking too much. And then we go into our second really tough road test. We go up to Louisville on a Friday night. And I think most Clemson fans are still having nightmares from that Louisville game last year where they just ran the ball all over us, just embarrassed our defense. So that's another that one along with Georgia Tech are definitely the two biggest concerns from the ACC schedule. Then Furman, that's a win, and then the rivalry in Columbia, and you know, it's tough to pick that because of some of the reasons we've talked about, some of the unknowns with y'all's team. But what I will say is, if you look at the rivalry since the ending of Big Thursday in 1959, first game ever in Clemson in 1960, from 1960 to 2024. Clemson has a better record in the series in Williams-Brice than in Death Valley. And so I think I'm ultimately leaning that direction. That there's just something about that stat. And then also, thinking that we're going to lose to you guys two years in a row. It's definitely possible, but it might be enough to sway me. So after that recap, I'm thinking 10-2 for us. I'm overall cautiously optimistic because we have all these preseason accolades, but a lot of it is potential. We are not a known commodity as far as what our offense and defense has actually put on the field. We have not matched our potential. With the talent we have on our roster, the on the field results have not really matched up with that, and so that is a somewhat of a cause of concern for me, um, as far as thinking we're going to go just immediately be a great team off the bat this year. Now 10-2, that probably puts us in the ACC championship game and gives us an opportunity to win the ACC and still get to the playoff. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially in this current era of college football. So I'm thinking probably we'll split the LSU and Carolina games. I think maybe we'll win one and lose one. And then I'm thinking maybe we'll stub our toe with one ACC game, whether it's on the road against LSU, or excuse me, on the road against Louisville, or on the road against Georgia Tech, or just a completely unexpected true upset.
All right, so 10-2.
10-2, yeah.
So I'm gonna simplify this. For whatever reason, coming into this morning, I was thinking that the LSU game was a neutral site game. I don't know why I was thinking that, but I don't think I'm gonna let it change my prediction on that game. Specifically, LSU being one of the few teams, us being one of the others, if not the only other, in our conference that's returning their starting quarterback from last year. Uh, and it's the SEC bias. It is. And then the other thing, too, is I think that Brian Kelly's probably coaching for his job this year.
He absolutely is.
So I think there's a little motivation. And they do have a lot of talent. Even with losing a lot of players, they still have a lot of talent on their roster. So I'm going to give that one to LSU coming in right out of the gate in a good close game.
I think that's fair. He has put a lot into this game. They've put signs up in the weight room. They've made shirts about Clemson game. He's calling us Death Valley Junior in the media. He is going all in for this game because they've lost, I think, 5 season openers in a row,
Yeah.
and some of those very winnable games. So I think he's considering this a must win.
And for their season as well, like in terms of the playoff, I
Yes.
think it's more of a must win for
Yes.
them than it is for you.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna give that one to LSU. Then I'm just gonna bunch all the rest of these games together. I think out of Georgia Tech, North Carolina, probably being the least likely of this group that I'm about to name, but I still put them in this group. Georgia Tech, North Carolina, SMU, and Louisville. I think one of those is a loss out of those 4 games. And then this year, actually, aside from the obvious reasons of just wanting to win the game, it's always a big game. But you highlighted the fact that for whatever reason, we don't perform well at home. I think that this team takes that personal this year, to defend home, because historically we don't do well in our matchup at home for whatever the reason may be. And then the boomer bust nature of our team, that volatility that we highlighted, if we hit, then we hit on an extremely high level. I think that's what's unique to this team this year, with specific players at specific key positions. If we hit on all cylinders and we're hitting at that time of the year, of course, you got to be healthy, then it's going to be hard to beat our team at home or on the road. So I'm going to give that one to us. Of course, I'm going to take us in that matchup. And so I looked at Clemson's schedule, and I have Clemson going 9-3.
Okay.
On the season, which is still obviously a very
I
good
think
year.
that's
That would probably
reasonable.
still put y'all in the conference championship picture and still securely put you in the playoff picture, I would imagine, assuming you win the conference
Yeah,
championship.
I mean, that's essentially identical to last year. We lose to Georgia and South Carolina, the SEC bookends, and lose one ACC game, and
Yep.
we're in there. So
that is my take on Clemson's season. You got anything to add to that, or we shift over to?
no, I think that's honestly, I think that's all very fair.
All right, then let's go over to our schedule. So how about I'll start this time?
Go ahead.
Since you started the last one. So I look at the first 5 games and things concern me. Like, you got to play Missouri on the road. We struggle with Missouri. I mean, even last year we referenced that game. I was upset with a minute and how many ever seconds to go in the game because Missouri goes down and scores that last touchdown, and I'm like, we just lost again to these people. And I remember, playing on my birthday some years back, the Connor Shaw game, even in that time period, having a barn burner with them. Just for whatever reason, Missouri is a thorn in our side. They really are. So I look at that one. Kentucky, much historically, is the same way. So that one is a concern. But theoretically, on paper, they should not be. They should not be right now. Neither one of those programs should be. Theoretically, Virginia Tech should not be. But I mentioned it a moment ago. I don't sleep on that game coming out the gate. So I'm going to say this with caution, but I have to make a prediction. When I look at it on paper, when I look at the boom potential of our roster, especially key players at key positions, certainly our coaching staff, I look at the first 5 games and say we should be 5-0 at the end of the first 5 games of the season. We should be. So that's going to be my prediction, that we're going to come through. We're going to win our first 5 games pretty convincingly, I would like to think, and we're going to get to early October, and we're going to be 5-0. Then we've got the LSU game. LSU game is a big revenge game. That loss last year essentially kept us out of the playoff over what I think most people agree. Do you agree was a bad penalty call on Kyle Kennard?
I agree that it was, but
It was a poor decision, but it really should not have been a penalty.
Well, I don't know. I'm not so sure that it's not a penalty, but maybe it's one that you don't throw in that situation. I'll put it that way.
And there were a couple other questionable flags too, but that being the biggest one. So, okay. Anyways, not to go back. We want to bury that. Us Carolina fans want to bury it. I was just curious what your take was. We didn't really get to talk about that play. Anyways, I don't think that's going to be forgotten. I think that most people feel like, we were the better football team that day and had a loss that really had severe implications to our entire season. So I think that motivating factor, then just given that we do feel like we have the better team, we go to LSU and we get the revenge on that game. So now we're 6-0. I actually feel the same way with Alabama, because if you take one turnover late in the game, which was a mistake. It was Lenore Sellers had a turnover. If that turnover is not on the board, I think there's a really good chance that we win that game. I think we felt like, as fans, we were in a position where we had played a really good game competitively on the road in Alabama, big time game for us, and we should have beat them. We feel like we should have won that game as well. So I'm going to count that as a win for that factor as well. I think both of those games, they rectify what went wrong last year and win both of them. So then I look at Oklahoma. We really walked the dog on them last year. So I would like to think that we are just that far ahead of them, and that momentum will continue this year at home. So that leaves Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and then the Clemson game. So what I've done is this. I'm going to assume that out of all those things I just said, I'm going to be wrong about at least one game. That's what I think is going to happen. But my prediction in my mind would be wrong, and we are going to drop at least one of those. Again, in theory, we should beat Texas A&M, but we've got to go on the road and play them. Ole Miss, and I just feel like I feel like they're going to beat us. I do. I feel like it's at least in my head at this point. I just feel like Lane Kiffin, for whatever reason, has our number, and that's going to be a loss on the road. Out of Texas A&M and Clemson, one of those will be a loss, and then I will be wrong on one of those games because that would put us starting the season, if I was right, at 8-0, which would be phenomenal. I'm going to assume that I'm going to be wrong, and that would put us also at 9-3 is the prediction I have for our team as well.
Okay. Yeah, so I I think that's definitely reasonable. I would tell you that looking at your schedule, I would agree completely. I see you guys sitting at 5-0. Absolutely. Agree with you that Virginia Tech, Missouri, Kentucky may not necessarily all be easy wins, may not just like coast through those, but I really don't expect as of based on what we see right now for you guys to lose any of those games. Kentucky looks like that might be the worst team in the SEC this year. At Missouri is the question mark because of your history there. Y'all haven't really played good in the other Columbia.
Yeah.
So that one is a slight question mark, but I'm predicting 5-0 at that point as well. So some of these I'm looking at from a historical perspective, a little bit less on some of the intangibles, a little bit less on the X's and O's and the players. But you guys have only won one time in the other Death Valley. So that was in 1994 where Brad Scott squeaked out a 1-point win. And otherwise, you guys have beaten LSU one other time. You've beaten them once at home and then once there. So you really historically do not have a good record against LSU. And I see that still being a desperation situation a little bit for Brian Kelly. So that one's definitely a potential loss in my mind. But I think overall, you have to look at this stretch here on your schedule is just absolutely appears to be absolutely brutal. So in a row, you go to LSU, you get Oklahoma at home, you get Alabama at home, then you're going on the road to Ole Miss and on the road to Texas A&M. I mean that the whole season is right there. So it's all about how you split those games. And I agree with you that Oklahoma, I'm not so sure about that, but that's another situation where Brent Venables is desperate. He is coaching for his job.
Yeah.
And Kalen DeBoer might be as well the next week. I mean, because of the expectations at Alabama, if they have stumbled their toe, let's say they already have 2 losses coming in, because I know they've played Georgia by that point. And probably some other games, and that's October 25th. So that would be the week after they would play Tennessee. So they have potential 2 losses. They could be desperate coming into that game. For some reason, I have a feeling you're going to go to Ole Miss and win. And Texas A&M, that's a tough one. You guys have still never won in College Station. So that's going to be another kind of historical hill you're trying to get over, a hump you're trying to get over. And of course, I already mentioned the how I felt about the rivalry game, but all in all, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about some of those individual games, but I'm actually landing at 9-3 as well for you
Okay.
guys. I think that, but I will say that you've got probably an 11-1 ceiling. I'm not sure what the floor is. I think the floor is probably 7-5. But based on what you have returning, and that's assuming that key players like Sellers is staying healthy throughout the season. But this is a tough schedule. But here's the thing. One of the key things, and I don't want to, not give any credit to what you guys have accomplished. Some of Beamer's success over the last several seasons has come from the fact that during the season, some games that at least his success relative to the preseason predictions, I should say, has come from the fact that some of the teams in the SEC have faltered a little bit. You know, Florida had gone down, and you guys beat Auburn a couple years ago when that was looking like a loss because they totally fell flat. And last year, no one looked at the schedule and thought, "Oh, y'all are just going to go roll Oklahoma in
Yeah.
Norman." That was, and so that's a key factor. But based on the preseason rankings and the schedule, I think it's gonna be a challenge, but I feel like 9-3 is reasonable based on what you did last year.
I don't know how I feel about this. First time we've been on the same page. Definitely predicting our schedules. So interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I hope it's a lot less than that,
it's
but
a yeah, of course. It's a lot of pressure on our quarterback really because if he can be, and he's been hyped for a long time from a lot of people,
yeah,
not on the national stage until now, but I mean, this is not new for him
yeah,
to have people really think highly of his potential in his game. If he can live up to as build, then I think the sky's the complete
sure,
limit. There's nothing impossible for us this season,
yeah.
really.
Well,
So
and I think another question is 9-3 this year going to get you in the playoffs where it didn't last year, you know?
yeah.
And that's just going to depend on how things go across the rest of the
Well, the conference
landscape.
is definitely down compared to some of that mystique that it had for a long
Yes,
time. So I mean
definitely.
that opens some doors. I think that any team in our conference whose schedule you look at, they could um, lose 2 or 3 games probably. So
Absolutely.
um, Gunnar Stockton's starting in Georgia, isn't he? I think he did
Yes.
get this. Yeah.
He did.
So
He did. Well, that's one of the key factors
it's going to be
as
interesting
far
for
as
Carolina fans watching how he performs this year.
yeah, I mean, you've got Gunnar Stockton, Georgia. I mean, Arch Manning is a little bit of a known commodity at Texas, but he's still a new starter, so you don't know what he's going to do over the course of the season.
Also, a lot of pressure. Yeah.
A lot of
And he's just
pressure.
been handed the keys like it's just a guarantee. There's no guarantee
Yep.
that it's going to be a massive success.
Yep. I mean, Tennessee's breaking in a new quarterback. Um, Alabama's breaking in a new quarterback with Ty Simpson. So these are big question marks and could be a reason why a season where you guys feel like, hey, we've got to go take advantage of this.
I think we definitely do. Definitely. So hopefully that's what we're going to see. We'll get a good start. I think that it's not just winning the Virginia Tech game, but how do you win if we win?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you win, in what fashion do you win? That's going to tell a lot about where we're at. So hopefully we come out firing on all cylinders and that momentum just rides all the way through November. But we
Yep.
will see. We will see. And we will see very soon. All right. Well, we could talk college football forever, and we're really already like half an hour in now. So we'll cap that right there.
Okay.
So let's shift over. There's a few different things. Obviously we discussed some things last time that you were here, but even since that was only a few months ago, our food scene here locally, the Florence food scene has grown even since that time. So I want to dive a little bit into where your thoughts on where we're at. And then at the end, I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but we always do this segment at the end of what I'm going to do since you've already done that is I'm just going to ask you what's 1 or 2 things that you've had recently that you really enjoyed.
Sounds great.
So I think you won't have a problem answering that.
No problem. No, not at all.
I guess I'll just start high level in general. What's some things that you've noticed over these last months that you've seen that have already happened or are rumored to happen? What are some of your thoughts whenever we talk about our food scene locally?
Sure. So I think that the good news is there's growth. It may not be exactly the growth that we and everyone else here ultimately wants to see for our food scene. We're still not getting any kind of like great diversification and a lot of different types of cuisines. There's a lot still out there that we want to see. But just for Florence in general, there's growth, there's building going on. New things popping up. We've got of course, one of the big ones is Dave's Hot Chicken opening up. We've got the Bojangles opening soon downtown. Of course, we have the yeah, and that's its own supposedly. Hey, well, they've got the sign
No,
up,
they
so
will.
it looks like it, and appeared to be a pretty much a confirmed rumor right now. You've got another Bojangles coming there next to Scrubbies right there at corner of Beltline and
Yeah, I saw
Hoffmeyer.
that.
So there's things happening. You've got the Baskin Robbins being built on the south side of town.
That's
You
a
have
good
the
thing.
the
Yeah.
news of the second Chipotle coming there on South
That
Irby.
could be a really good thing too.
So, I mean, these aren't, again, ultimately, this is not where you ultimately want to be, and it's not the only growth you want to see in the food scene, but having these different options in different parts of the town um, is good and indicative of growth in general, and hopefully going to lead to other things. We've got the new Indian restaurant coming there in front of the Julia on Irby Street. Very excited about that. Don't have a lot of details. I think it looks like that I'm not sure if it's the owner or the chef has a lot of experience working in some nice hotels and restaurants in India. So I think that's going to be great. Love to have another Indian option in town. So I'm sure I've forgotten a few things.
Notch 8 was
Oh yeah, Notch
yeah.
8, and I hate that I
I
haven't
haven't been
gotten a
over there. I
chance
haven't
to
been
get
either.
there because based on where I work, that's a pretty long drive
Yeah.
for lunch. But I'm definitely gonna make it down there. Uh, Victor's renovation, haven't had a chance to make it, but that's a pretty big deal. I think based on the pictures I've seen, it looks great.
Yeah.
I love the way they've updated the space, and I don't know that they've launched a new menu yet. At least what's on the website is the same because I have checked it, but I'm assuming that's in the works. Maybe once they kind of get rolling a little bit in the new space. So
Mhm.
I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting over there. And when we had probate judge Jesse was on last episode, we talked about the Victor's renovation. If I understand correctly, they've got a dry ager that they.
That's what I've heard as well.
So
They've got a cabinet.
I don't know how they're approaching that, but the bottom line is if they've got, and I mentioned this with him, I won't go over it in detail again, but if they've got dried steaks, we've talked about that before many moons back. I don't know if you remember that, but not having that option in town unless the meat market is has them available, which they do
Yep.
from time to time, then that's a huge opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely excited and gonna have to get over there and check them out. I haven't been to
Yeah.
Notch 8 either. And then
Well, and one quick thing on Victor's
yeah,
I'll add is that it seems like they're moving that direction towards a steakhouse. I think they've even kind of rebranded from the whole steaks, wine, seafood. Now it's like Victor's
Chop House.
Carolina Chop
Yeah,
House. So they're kind of heading that direction, which I think maybe that makes more sense for their kind of clientele and customers that they're trying to serve. So
yeah,
I mean I think it's exciting. And just to see the investment, that is a tremendous amount of
yeah.
investment that they're putting into the restaurant. So I love to see that.
Well, I've thought about this. So and there's really a whole can of worms that could be opened on this subject. I'm not going to do it now, but I'll just skim over the top whenever I say that it seems like we are indeed growing exponentially our food scene, and it is diversifying. Maybe not at the rate some people would like, but it is diversifying, and it almost seems to be in spite of ourselves. Sometimes I feel like in our community we shoot ourselves in the foot with the way that we treat this area of industry in terms of the food industry. There's another rumor that I've heard. I'm not gonna say any details because I do not know how accurate this is, but I heard a little rumor about a week or two ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, that maybe potentially an old favorite restaurant may resurface that's been gone for a while. I'm gonna leave that there.
Okay, we're
So
gonna have to talk off mic about
we
that
can
one
we can
then.
do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought about it. But anyways, I think that we are growing in spite of ourselves, and if we could really correct that part of it, that could even add even more momentum. But it seems like I think Elliott's is doing really well.
Oh
I think
yeah.
so far that's been a success.
I mean, we're there probably on average once every other week or so, and it's phenomenal every time.
Yeah, and then the renovations at Victor's, I expect that to go well, especially if they've added dried steaks to the menu. I hope that's something that they're able, because I think I don't know. I've not been in that part of the business in terms of overhead and costs, but I would imagine serving dried steaks, it has to be something that you've got to get it very right for it to be profitable.
Yep.
But if they can do it, I think that's a tremendous addition to the community because there's not gonna be anywhere else that you can get them. So that if they can make it work on their end and then it's working right on the consumer side, then that could be a great addition. And I do think that the franchises being added over to the south end is a big deal. The other
Yep.
thing that I think too, you've got this Lennar neighborhood that's coming over here on Southborough, and I was talking with a restaurant owner about this last week. These restaurants over on this side of town, on the west end,
Hmm.
that aren't in the David H. McLeod side, but on the Pine Needle, Southborough, Cashua part of West Florence, has been a struggle, I think, for businesses. We saw that with Creek Rats, but I think that some of that is starting to shift. And if the ones that are already in place, for everything I can tell, Baja Joe's is having tremendous success.
Yep.
There's always a lot of people over there. Every time I've gone, it's been fine. I've got nothing negative to say about them. Um, and we've got a handful of other restaurants. Obviously, SC Real Foods, Il Buen Gustayo, Chibo's has been around for a while now. And I think that if those places hopefully are maintaining and doing well, but especially if they hold on until some of this development happens, even with the publics coming in, excuse me, then that's going to draw more traffic over to this side of town.
Yep.
Those people are going to be shopping. They'll go to eat before or
Sure.
after. You
Yeah.
could start to see an explosion even here. So you
Yeah.
got this development that's happening on the south side.
Hmm.
And I think it stands to reason you could see even more restaurants start popping up over on this side of town as well.
I think so, and right there, and right at the corners of Cashua, Ebenezer, and Palmetto, there's a lot of growth potential there. There's a lot of land. The only thing I've slightly concerned about is it's everything, of course, is confirmed. They've got the development sign up there in front of the property, but until they start building, I have some
Yeah.
concern, especially because of the news with the AESE battery plant
Yeah.
stopping construction. I don't really know the details. I don't know what any kind of long-term plans are, but that was one of my first thoughts was when that was announced was, oh no, what impact is that going to have to some of these restaurants, other businesses that were planning to open over the next course of the next year or so. So I guess remains to be seen.
It's a good point. Yeah, I won't believe it till I see it. I kind of feel the same way. But I think that a lot of those metrics are based on rooftops.
Yes, that's
And so
true.
the Grove at Ebenezer was a big part of that, I think. And then they've added also these townhomes or apartments over
Yep.
there. And I think that the Lennar neighborhood was probably one of the, you know, final pieces to that puzzle for them. I'm just completely speculating, but I think so. The only thing is that neighborhood also is behind, and I've been noticing this for some days because I pass by there frequently. There's not been a lot of construction going on. They framed
Mm,
and put up like 6 houses pretty quickly over there, and that was really supposed to start May of this year. We're now rolling into September, and there's a handful of incomplete homes that I haven't seen anybody working on, and I could be wrong.
mm,
I don't want to get out of line here, but I think it's been some weeks since I've seen anybody out there working
okay.
on even those homes.
Mm,
So I'm not sure what's going on with that, but obviously they've already prepared that whole space. So I mean,
yeah.
I have no reason to think they're not going to finish that out. But it does seem like that's moving slower than it was expected,
Okay.
which could impact. It could impact ground if that was something they were looking at. They're
Yeah.
anticipating those homes being filled, and if
Absolutely.
those people aren't going to be shopping at Publix, and they might, at the minimum, delay. So we'll
Yep.
see. But I thought another thing too, the news on the Chipotle going up on the south end, and I thought about you whenever I saw that. But that actually could be a good thing to add another Chipotle.
Yeah.
I
I
don't know what
mean,
the details are with it, but
well, as long as they're consistent, I think especially on weekends, we would probably go to that one, even though it's a little further for us, simply just because it's you avoid all the interstate business
And the
that
mall
that can
traffic
kind
too.
of
Yeah.
like, yeah, that can kind of clog up the other one.
I could see that. And then there was also a rumor that I just saw this week, and we talked about it off camera, but
Yep.
the Krispy Kreme may be moving. I don't know.
Yeah, this I
It,
first saw this yesterday on Facebook.
that sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, I it's hard for me to understand. I don't know what if there's details associated with like the owning of the building or
There would have to
leasing
be,
the
you would
building
think.
or something
Yeah.
like that. But the rumor is that it's moving to somewhere off Hoffmeyer, but it
That's what I
seems
heard.
unclear where because there's some spaces right there. Of course, we've got the Bojangles that's being built, but then there is that property on Beltline in between Scrubby's and the backside of Walmart that I've always thought seemed like it was ripe for development. So I'm not sure if maybe it's there instead of directly on Hoffmeyer, but I'm not sure.
It just seems weird, though. It seems like they've had plenty of success where they are, and unless
Yeah,
the building just because sometimes I mean I won't say any names, but sometimes there's been restaurants that have made a move, and it
yeah,
really they needed to because the building really was not ideal, to
yeah,
put it that way. Sometimes the age of the building, whatever the case may be, and sometimes you just need to upgrade your facilities. Or maybe it could be lease terms. We've seen that too.
yeah.
Lease goes up and it doesn't make sense anymore. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think for that one, it certainly doesn't seem confirmed yet. So that one is purely a speculative
Yeah.
rumor. But I think one of the important pieces of that was the fact that there was conversations about there being some other kind of shopping center development associated with that, which that would be exciting to see that happen there in Hoffmeyer area.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it could have a lot of upside for sure. I just think it would disappoint a lot of people because that location is so central to
Yeah.
like everybody
Yeah.
passes by that
Well,
location every
I
day.
hate to see it if it's gonna go empty because that spot there from the light at 5 Points down to Sunday House, there's some, you know, businesses, plenty of businesses there. There's some, stalwart Florence businesses. You've got Apple Annie's, you've got Krispy Kreme, and but at the same time, that area's got a lot of vacant lots, you've got some vacant buildings, and it feels like it's almost like businesses don't want to cross the light. Once you cross the light at 5 Points, it's like, that's not desirable space anymore. And I don't quite understand that because it seems like that could be a pretty prime area for some,
Yeah.
great business district.
Hopefully that's going to change too. And it kind of in the same vein with the Southborough Ebenezer um, area of West Lawrence, kind of the same concept. We've seen a handful. I don't know if you've probably noticed this because you're right over there, but there's been a handful of residential properties. I sold one of them that people have gone in and remodeled.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I don't know who, what, when, where, but investors have seized on some of those older houses over there and remodeled them, and in some cases done a really good job. And that's changing that corridor going down Palmetto.
Yep.
So, and then obviously everything that's going into downtown. So now it seems like all that's kind of trickling out, and people want to be down there. They want to be close to what's happening downtown.
Yep.
And there's some opportunities like the old Ryan's location,
Absolutely. Yep.
the drive-in location right there at 5 Points. So I mean,
Hmm.
there's a handful of spaces. Sunday House, we would imagine will get back up and running soon. So I mean, there that whole area could change. I think Effie Pop's kind of anchoring it down right at the light would be a good indicator too, because
Yeah.
I think by all accounts they're doing well. So
Absolutely, yeah, and you have definitely have businesses that are there doing well. I mean, you've got Heroes Hideout, you've got Groucho's, I
mhm.
mean, um, you've got the Galaxy Comics. So I mean, there's businesses there, but there's pockets of empty
Similar
spaces
to
that you'd
Irby
like to
Street, yeah,
see utilized. Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing. Like we'd
yeah,
like to see it kind of fill out all the way down.
definitely.
But there probably is some opportunity. And so hopefully I maybe I'm an optimist on this subject, and it's probably been that way for a long time. You could attest to, but I think that we are seeing the development and the growth. Like we're seeing it happen. It's no longer speculative. Restaurant owners can come into Florence and have success. And that was probably a big question mark for a
Yeah.
long time. But it needs to improve. It still needs to grow. There needs to be more. I
Yep.
think I think one issue, we don't really have to get into this, but I think one issue that a lot of restaurant owners have is staffing issues. It's hard to staff a restaurant, and that has a trickle down effect to everything else. But overall, I think that we're moving in the right direction. And if that momentum does continue, and I attribute a lot of it to people moving out of market. So you have these people that are moving in that are used to, they're bringing in their own element of diversity that's different than
Yeah.
ours. And they're used to, I mean, you've got people coming in from the Northeast and
Yep.
from out West. And so they've had all this exposure. So they get here
Yep.
and, they don't have a problem going to these restaurants with an open mind and being able to evaluate it appropriately,
Yeah.
I would say, I guess.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I think we would be remiss to not mention some of the spots that have opened or opening that are a little bit different or not chains. I mean, we've got Positano Italian Market, which
Mhm.
hopefully will be also a deli very soon. So that's very exciting. They're on Second Loop. They're already providing items in the market that you can't get anywhere else in town. Some things, of course, you can, but some that you just can't get here. And so that's going to be great for the community. Once they get their deli operational, I mean, hopefully they knock it out of the park. And you've got like first of the month there in the old Schlotsky's location that seems to be, I mean, they've opened just a couple weeks ago. There seems to be really busy. It's a all day brunch, which for me was kind of skeptical of whether how well that would work in Florence, but it seems to be very popular so
Mhm.
far. So it's good to see people doing new concepts, new types of food, and help improve the scene overall.
Exactly. And that what I think, I'll just say this, maybe we'll kind of bring this to a close, but my opinion is, and to me this is really kind of just logical, but what I would want to encourage the community as a whole to do is we have a tendency to gravitate towards cynicism in this area. And I would say that you should want to see all these businesses you just mentioned and all the other ones that are out there, mom and pops or franchises, but especially the mom and pops. So your first of the month, your um Positanos, the Massimos, I don't care, which Italian restaurant it is. There's a few locally owned ones in town. Um, we got a new Indian restaurant. We already have a great Indian restaurant in
Yeah.
town as well.
Hmm.
So both of those places and so on and so on, you should want to see them succeed. So that whatever they're offering, say you don't care for all day brunch. I kind of like having that option. I haven't been over there yet either, but they're on my very short list. Maybe
Hmm.
as early as next week. By the time this airs, I will have already gone. Um, but even if that wasn't your thing, you should still want to see them do well because word gets around and analytics takes place. And so future business owners, entrepreneurs that may offer something that you would like
Yeah.
are seeing these things, and the way that we respond to these places in our community, the way that we talk about them on the internet, the
Yeah.
way that we make videos, the kind of stuff that we do, people are looking at that. And if I'm investing my money, not to mention running a restaurant, it's more than just money. You have to invest your entire life. And I'm not going to put that into a community that's going to ball me up and kick me down the road. Like, I'd go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because some of it is just this stuff goes on everywhere. But the revelation I've had, especially over the last year or so doing this, is that in Florence, we can't afford to do what people do in bigger markets like in the Northeast and or Atlanta, larger cities, whatever, Charlotte even. We have to be a little bit more careful about what we say. Like, you don't have to go spend your money somewhere, but you also don't have to just blast places all over the internet and all that, because
Yeah.
we can do a lot more damage here. Like, in you say you got a content creator or something like that in New York, he can blast a place. 100 people can blast that place and they can still have immense success because there's a million plus people, that are
Yeah.
foot trafficking in and out of that area. We can't do that here. I mean, we've got a city of 40,000, a county of 140, greater area, less than 250,000 people at the max.
Yeah.
And only a fraction of those people are actually going to traffic the specific area where
Yep.
any given restaurant is at. So we just have to be mindful of that. And we could do ourselves a lot of favors for the things we would like to see by just leave things, how do you say it? What's the let it be? Let alone, leave and let alone? I don't know.
Yeah.
Let it be. If you
Yeah,
don't like
let
it,
it
just
be.
let it be.
Yeah. Well, I think, as you know, that I like critiquing things with just about anything, and I like critiquing food and being a critic. But it's about how you do it, and constructive feedback. If you're doing something for clicks or just for entertainment purposes or whatever it may be, then it's just I don't have any time for that. Like
Yeah.
unless it's understood that it's for that only or comedy or whatever it may be. But, you've got to think about the potential damage you're doing if you're not even being sincere when you're
Or
doing that.
that's the challenge, or even if you are, and this is something I had to realize. So I'll just say this is the first time I've talked about this publicly with anybody, but the whole burger ranking thing that we were doing, which was kind of a start to a lot of all of this activity because a lot of people enjoyed it. I mean, I can't tell you how many people out in the community came up to me and was like, I watched those, I like them. You probably aren't going to see another one ever again. And the reason why, if you go back and watch each one of those, and there was 20 something videos, um, I didn't have one burger that I had anywhere that I felt like this is horrible. I never that never was the takeaway. But as the list grew, all I was doing was just submitting my favorites. I like
Yep.
this over this,
Hmm.
and then I was trying to articulate the reasons why. Was the list grew, you had restaurants that were all of a sudden they're moving farther and farther down, and now the list speaks more than somebody might not even go back and watch the video I did on that place.
Hmm.
And so I realized I'm like, just sitting right here in this studio one day, I was like, this could potentially be damaging. And that was not my intention. That's not I don't think that that's productive to what I would like to see as a citizen of this community holistically. Now I'm contributing to the problem. I want to see it grow and develop. So even if I didn't like it, which I didn't have one that I really felt that way, but even if there was one that I didn't, um I still want that restaurant to have success. So surely there's a group of people that enjoy that item or that place as a whole, whatever the case would be in that scenario. And I want them to have immense success because that's going to feed into the success of the place over here that I do like. But yeah, that was why those stopped. And
Okay.
for me at least, they won't continue because I was like, this could actually be damaging. And that's not something that I want set out to do or would even want to inadvertently cause or do. So
Okay.
we
Fair enough.
and and I just say that to say, and we'll close here and then we'll do our last segment.
Okay.
But it's important for me to say that I guess it was fitting for it to be you that I shared that with, because that was the thing that we shared in common that was a catalyst to a lot of this, and just our own conversations that
Yeah.
we would have. What we sat here and talked about today is what we would normally
Hmm.
do, and some other people as well. But the bottom line is we want to see Florence's food scene develop into whatever it can be, whatever that figurative potential is, and we don't
Yeah.
really know. We would like to see it grow into that. And in order for that to happen in a smaller community like Florence, we're not New York City, we're not Charlotte, we're not even Myrtle Beach for that matter. Like we can't afford, if we want to see that happen, to be as critical and just kind of reckless with some of our opinions as some of these other markets can. So we need to be a lot more supportive as a community to our restaurant industry as a whole if we want to see it develop and grow and be robust and diverse.
Yep.
And really, when I read comments from people and I get the opportunity now to see so many of these opinions because of all of this, I think that's what everybody actually wants. I think we all agree on that, but we've got to assume some responsibility in it. And so, to me, these are some of the ways, at least for me personally, that I realized I have an impact, whether directly or indirectly. And so, anyways, I think that in spite of anything negative on that note that's going on, we really are moving in a great direction. So it's
I agree.
exciting
Let's
to see
keep
what's going to be next. Yeah.
we just got to keep it up.
Yep. Absolutely. So, with that said, we normally close up with our Florence Foodie's favorite Florence food item segment, but you've already done said
Yep.
segment before. So, we're going to do something a little bit different. And I just want you to take a couple minutes and share. Is there anything relatively new that you've had since the last time we spoke? One or two items anywhere
Sure.
in Florence.
Yeah, well, since of course, as I mentioned, if you were looking at it from the perspective you do of the item that you eat the most what do you actually order? But, I've recently just been getting the California burrito at Saucy Limon. I mean, we eat there all the time, but that specifically has just it's been hitting. It's been so good, whether I get it with steak or I substitute and get grilled chicken, whatever. I think it's the best burrito in town for me. Um, and Elliot's, of course, we're eating there all the time, and it's been phenomenal, and just it still continues to be a great part of the community of the food scene. But as far as the actual one to talk about, I have had eaten there a few times over the years since they opened, but I have recently been going to Aloha Kitchen more. It's pretty close to our
Mm.
office, so I've been going there, and I have to shout out their patty melt. Their patty melt has just been slapping for me. I mean, consistently every time. And you know my feelings towards uh, um, smash burgers. Not the biggest fan. I like a thicker, juicier patty. And theirs is kind of in between. I think they call it a smash patty, but it wouldn't be,
Yeah.
real thin and crispy. So it's really nice. I mean, it's just tastes great. Their sauce they put on it's really good. Their Munster cheese that they use, grilled onions, and I just love a patty melt in general because I think a lot of times, unless you have a great bun, a lot of times that toast, the buttery Texas toast kind of thing, is more consistent than certain buns you just pull out of a bag. And then their fries that they offer, they've got the hurricane fries, volcano fries, tsunami fries, aloha fries, and I love the hurricane fries as my side because you've got teriyaki sauce, you've got spicy mayo on there, and then you've got like sesame seeds, and it's just and there's just crinkle fries, but that sauce combination, which is not something I would always order because of like causing it to be soggy, but it's just never like that, and the food's always made really fresh. You sit there and they cook it for you, and I just yeah, it's just been really, really good, and I like other things they have on their menu as well, but the patty melt has been my go-to recently.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that. I haven't had that one. Everything I've had there has been good though. I think they do a really good job.
Yeah, I
So
I agree, and they have a good social media presence, but
they
I
do.
I wo I worry that they don't get the business that they should. I mean, there's always people that go in there, and I think they have a pretty good lunch business, but based on their location, I think if you don't work over there, people are having to make a special trip
Yeah.
out towards the farmers market, and I just would encourage people to do that because I think it's good, and they don't offer necessarily a lot of things that it's just totally different, but it's just slightly different
Yeah.
version than what you can get anywhere else in town, and I appreciate that.
It's a great option. And going back to also to the burrito at Sauce Limon, I hope I'm not gonna get in trouble for this, but I've been this has been on my radar for like 2 weeks. That's why it was funny that you said that as the first thing you mentioned. The burrito is really good. So historically, I would get the steak and then you can add chorizo for a couple bucks. I would add that,
Yeah.
and it's very good. But the other day, I wanted this. I ended up going to a drive-through because it was a time thing. I didn't want to get out the car. It might have been raining. I don't even remember. But um, bottom line is, I'm wondering, and I am saying this publicly. Perhaps I should not, but it's too late. I'm already committed. I want to add their. I think they got the best carnitas in town, and I wonder if I
Oh,
can add the carnitas to the burrito substitute. I
I'm
don't
sure
know
you
if they would
can.
do that. I don't see why they wouldn't.
I'm sure they would. You probably have to pay extra, but
I'm fine, with that,
yeah,
whatever. But
because I mean, I asked about the grilled chicken, and they have no problem. Now I'm sure it's because you're
yeah,
dropping down from the steak to the grilled chicken, but
yeah.
they have no issues doing it.
Well, I think you add carnitas to that burrito. Just swap it out. One for
Yeah,
one. That'd be really good.
I might try that next time too.
So hopefully a bunch of people don't go in there and they're like, man, we didn't want to do this, but
Yeah,
that could be a good idea. So maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it'd be positive. But that's on my short list also. All right, cool. Well, it was
yeah,
good to catch up. Um, you've got 10-2 for the Tigers, 9-3. We are in agreement on 9-3 for Carolina. I've got Clemson at 9-3, so pretty close. And the season kicks off. By the time this comes out, it could be same day. It's going to be close. I don't.
okay,
So I'm about a week behind. So it could be close whenever this is. I don't know if this will air after the season has started or not, but if it has, it'll be right there on top of it.
yeah,
So looking forward to it. Should be a good season. Hopefully everybody stays healthy and we can just enjoy some good football. And
yeah, and appreciate you having me back. I love being on here and talking with you, hanging out, and just excited for football season because we're a week away from between now and the end of the year is the best time of the year.
It is. Most wonderful time of the year.
Yep.
So with that being said, Lewis, I appreciate you stopping by. As always, I appreciate y'all's viewership, and God willing, we will see you on the next one.